a thread by Soul War. Every martyr offered up by the mainstream media to create the riots or sustain them is slathered in lies. When any person of color is shot by police or who dies in their custody, all you have to do is wait for the facts to emerge. Mainstream media doesn't wait, of course. They want chaos. They immediately push the most inflammatory narratives possible to gin up racial hatreds and cultural division. And now that the long-planned Marxist insurrection has been launched, they prolong America's agony with glee. They've done this at every opportunity for years. Trayvon Martin and Big Mike Brown are just two recent examples where the mainstream media's deliberate meddling, along with President Obama and Attorney General Holder, sparked hateful division, and in the case of Brown, a remorseless thug. Destructive riots. Martin was cast as a child, and Brown was a gentle giant. When the facts were finally revealed, they turned out to be far different. The story, a black child, Trayvon Martin, was spotted by a white, racist cop wannabe who chased him for being in his neighborhood and shot him repeatedly in the back because he couldn't catch him. Associated Press. The reality, the first two pictures were used worldwide to crow about America's racism. These photos were years out of date. Martin was taller than Zimmerman and sucker punched and pummeled the white Hispanic who only drew and fired when Martin reached for Zimmerman's still holstered pistol. By the time the facts came out, nobody cared. The narrative had been successfully set, you see. Am I next? Excellent framing of the event by the mainstream media to ruin race relations and set us back a decade. Ferguson was worse. The truth about Brown was known before the riots happened. Police even released the CCTV of Brown committing strong-armed robbery just minutes before he tried to murder Officer Darren Wilson with his own handgun. Wilson was barely able to fight off the gentle giant, shooting him in the thumb. When Brown charged again, Wilson killed him. Wilson was under no obligation to go through another round of "let me try to murder you with your own gun," and the court agreed. Ferguson was already a smoking ruin. I watched what the mainstream media and provocateurs like Sean Parcells did with a growing sense of horror. Now, I'm not numbed by the constant barrage of fake news designed to set my country on fire. I'm enraged. Let's go through the media's latest heroes, shall we? Say their names. Breonna Taylor, the story. She was asleep in bed when cops doing a no-knock drug raid killed her. Her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, not knowing who was violently entering their apartment, opened fire with a pistol, and the return fire by the cops wounded him and killed the sleeping Taylor. It's all a lie. Although the Louisville police had a no-knock warrant, they knocked and said LPD. Walker then, after the cops had knocked and announced themselves, opened fire. Taylor, who is named in the warrant as a suspect and hadn't been an EMT for 4 years, was in the hallway with Walker when they were both hit by LPD's return fire. But try telling that to these people. They got their narrative from the mainstream media, and that's all that matters to them. Her death is just a hammer to beat us with anyway. Moving on. George Floyd. The poor man was just trying to buy some Chinese food with a fake $20 bill, so the cops manhandled and then asphyxiated him to death. That's the story. Cops just knelt on the poor man's neck till he died. The reality. Floyd was in a state of excited delirium due to having 4 times the fatal dosage of fentanyl in his body. Officer Chauvin was trained to restrain someone in that state exactly as he did. Try telling that to the Marxist mob. They don't care. Even though these cases are now being debunked within hours now, it doesn't matter. The mainstream media are throwing gasoline everywhere as Antifa and Black Lives Matter terrorists flick matches at us. Cities are becoming hell zones. Next, Rayshard Brooks. The story, he was snuffed by some racist Atlanta PD for having the unmitigated gall to be caught sleeping in his car. The reality, he was passed out drunk in the drive-through lane of that Wendy's. After failing the sobriety check, the cops had to arrest him. Brooks resisted them, ripped a taser from one of the officer's hands, ran, and then fired that taser at the cop's face. Officer Rolfe shot back and killed him. The Fulton County DA charged Rolfe with murder, even though he himself had stated 1 week earlier, a taser is a deadly weapon. Did it matter? Of course not. Say hello to the NFAC, the Knocking Around Club, an armed militia of strong black folks that appeared right after Brooks died. They began, quote, patrolling against racism near the now burned down Wendy's and blocked streets with barricaded checkpoints. You'll be happy to know that Atlanta Mayor Bottoms was in negotiations with the NFAC when on July 4th, a black woman tried to drive around one of their illegal armed barricades. They opened fire and murdered her 8-year-old daughter, Secoria Turner. Madness. The NFAC is a danger to others and themselves. Here, just 3 weeks later, at an NFAC BLM rally, an NFAC member passed out from the heat and discharged their shotgun as they fell, hitting 3 other members. Just 3 days ago, the NFAC marched to Churchill Downs to try and shut down the Kentucky Derby. As the race got underway, hundreds of the heavily armed NFAC stood at a fence just feet away from the hundreds of police and Kentucky National Guard. I watched it live with my heart in my throat. 1 negligent discharge here. 1 Iranian Chinese cartel sniper opens fire. Bloodbath. I saw what was on the other side of that fence. The NFAC would have been chopped to pieces. Thankfully, nothing happened, as it seems to have been a symbolic photo op, but this is playing with fire. Moving on. Jacob Blake. The story. Cops shot a black man for no reason whatsoever in the back 7 times in front of his children. The reality. Blake was wanted for rape, was armed with a knife, and resisted arrest. He's now paralyzed from the waist down. I'd call that karma. The vile mainstream media went right to work. The most often played watched video just hours after the shooting helpfully put captions over Blake's movement that clearly showed him holding a knife. Just an oversight, I'm sure. By nightfall, armed Marxist lunatics were out in force. Watch and listen. When the sheriff's deputies, safe in this MRAP, mine-resistant assault protected, ignored the Marxist militia, they shot at the MRAP. That was the first night. By the second night, Kenosha's business district was in flames. Systematic arson akin to Minneapolis in late May. We all know what happened on the third night. A Kenosha militia formed to try and save what was left of Kenosha's businesses, and insaniac BLM rioters attacked a 17-year-old armed with a rifle. 2 of them died and 1 was badly injured. This forced Trump to act swiftly to prevent more violence. The fallout of the Kenosha shooting is Rittenhouse is facing serious charges that are politically motivated, just like Floyd and Brooks officers who were just doing their jobs. Oh, and the victims of Kyle's white supremacy? A pedophile, a woman beater, and a burglar. Now, we come to the mainstream media's latest prop, Daniel Prude. The story. Cops abused and murdered a mentally ill black man, found wandering naked in the middle of the night by putting a hood, shades of execution, on him, and then asphyxiating him George Floyd style. Remember excited delirium? The reality. Prude had a shit ton of serious medical issues and entered the state of excited delirium when police placed a spit hood on him, as he said he'd had COVID-19. The cops immediately recognized this and again followed their training to restrain him until he could be sedated. Prude was on PCP, angel dust, and had massive comorbidity issues. Also, his arrest took place on March 23rd, with him dying in a hospital a week later. This martyr to America's systemic racism was timed to rekindle the flames President Trump had extinguished in Kenosha. Every single death or serious injury to a person of color will be used by the mainstream media and the National Lawyers Guild to fan the flames they've lit. NLG, National Lawyers Guild, have a war chest of millions from very questionable origins to ensure direct action rioters are bailed out quickly. Why? As I've often said, 85% of the rioters are cover, support, press for the direct action element, who are the ones who commit all the violence and property damage. They are usually 20 to 30 members out of hundreds, so they need them back on the street fast to keep the chaos going. And in certain cities, there are people within city government eager to help them. As the mainstream media smarmily burble at us about the peaceful protests, as buildings burn behind them, they're throwing shade at these deranged rioters and dousing us in gasoline. It can't last, and it won't. I now come to the last martyr, their sacred assassin, Michael Reinl. Everything he did, from the murder to the interview, was supposed to blow up the powder keg the mainstream media has turned our nation into. I truly loathe this deranged and murderous idiot. He was a simple-minded tool. The killing of Aaron J. Danielson was supposed to goad President Trump into reckless action in Portland. When that failed, Trump said the murder was terrible, but that local law enforcement needed to do their jobs. Reinl's handlers, National Lawyers Guild, foreigners, had him do the interview to lure President Trump's supporters onto Portland's streets for mayhem as they looked for Reinl, since the smiling Mayor Wheeler and District Attorney Schmidt were allowing him to roam free. That interview forced the feds to act early, and Reinl died in a shootout with U.S. Marshals. The vile story. Reinl shot Danielson in self-defense to protect two black men Danielson was about to murder with a Glock pistol. The Portland Police Bureau claimed they took a Glock off of Danielson's body and swallowed the two black men's story whole to ensure Reinl would be acquitted, you see. I've watched the videos. PPB never took a pistol off of Danielson. It's all a lie. The reality, this was a targeted assassination of a random Trump supporter to create more mayhem, and the fix was in to ensure Reinl walked. So, in the interim between Danielson's murder and Reinl's richly deserved death, the Department of Justice moved swiftly. They federally deputized special teams of the Oregon State Police, and when the trailer of the Vice interview aired, they acted immediately to save lives. The federal team snatched up DA Mike Schmidt's undercharged softball warrant and, using local law enforcement officers, located Reinl fast off of clues found in the trailer of the interview. Sorry, Wheeler and Schmidt, no trial needed. We are watching President Trump play a deadly game of chess with demonic forces. They don't have a prayer. Like the Japanese Empire's mad bid to defeat the United States, the outcome was never in question. It was only a question of how many American lives and treasure it would cost. The cost in lives is mounting, but dawn is approaching. November 3rd. From now until then, the mainstream media and the rioters are going to try to pull you in, push you into doing something stupid, like confronting people who will chase a guy with a rifle so they can chortle as they prime more stories to destroy America's morale. Stay defensive. All the Democrats had to do was not be crazy. Remember that? Where are they now? Their DNC convention was a wake, not a party. Hold on. Stop listening to them and trust the power of your vote. What we did in 2016 is going to happen again, only now, even more powerfully. All they had to do in the end were lies, fear, and delusion. They strayed off of the American map, pulled by hands eager for them to lead us astray. We wouldn't allow them. We'll watch from afar as their doom falls upon them. Then we will forget them. We're busy, you see. We'll be enjoying the fruits of an Americana rising, no longer impeded by their dark storytellers, as their decades-long grip on our culture is broken for good, their new cult rejected, and a second great awakening begun. We're almost there. Stay the course. To support Brent Cates' works, donate any amount at paypal.me/Brent Cates. Thank you for listening.